In my last video, I have discussed about the process of Canadian citizenship. In this video, I'm going to talk about Canada's current immigration situation. Before that, let's see the current immigration updates in Canada. Number one, government announces new temporary foreign worker program reforms. Employers are limited to a temporary foreign worker portion of 10% of their workforce at any work site, up to 20% for certain high-demand sectors like healthcare and construction. This program will not process LMIA, Labour Market Impact Assessment applications for positions in metropolitan areas where the unemployment rate is 6% or higher. Number two, new wage rules are making jobs scarce for foreign workers. Since September, employers in Canada will face new restrictions on their hiring of low-wage temporary foreign workers. This policy shift of federal government will push businesses to make a greater effort to hire workers already in Canada. Under the new restrictions, employers will be limited to hiring 10% of their workforce through the program's low-wage stream. The government will not process new labour market impact assessments for low-wage positions in areas with unemployment rates of more than 6%. Contracts for low-wage positions will generally be limited to 1 year. There are some exceptions to the above rules, such as employers in construction and healthcare sectors. The cap on the proportion of low-wage positions is being reduced to 20%. Work permit changes a concern for childcare shortages in Ontario. Now let's see the Canada's current immigration situation. Before we discuss about the current immigration situation, let's see why Canada needs immigrants. The strength of Canada's economy is measured in part of the number of employed people working and paying taxes to fund our public services like healthcare, education, transportation, etc. The government needs tax money for these type of services, so it's extremely important to have qualified workers to fill up available jobs. However, Canadians are living longer, having fewer children. More people are retiring, less children are at school. Therefore, the number of Canadian-born potential workers are limited. Immigrants are not only improving the Canadian workforce and paying taxes, but also they are spending money on goods, housing, transportation, which is going to support the Canadian economy. According to a new study which is projecting global population and economic trends between now and 2100, Canada's current openness to immigration must continue if the country wants to maintain one of the world's largest economies for the rest of the century. Canada is a large country with a steadily declining birth rate and a large industrial and technology sector that requires new workers yearly. But for the first time in the Canadian history, there are more Canadians over the age of 65 than the children under the age of 15, because for nearly 50 years, women had fewer than 2 children. The life expectancy has been increasing gradually, and the number of persons aged 85 and older has doubled since 2001. According to population projections, this number could triple by 2046. When the more people ages and leave the workforce, it will put a heavy pressure on the country's labor force, and it would adversely impact on economic growth. Thanks to immigration, Canada's labor force continues to grow every year. More than 80% of the immigrants admitted to Canada in recent years are under 45 years old, meaning they will have plenty of working years in Canada. Although Canada undoubtedly needs immigration, Canadian immigration and settlement policies have produced some unexpected negative effects on post-secondary education, housing, the labor market, and visa and immigration processes. The international students put a heavy pressure on housing, so the shelters are out of spaces. The food banks are flooded with new immigrants. Also, public surveys showed a growing share of the population thinks Canada has too many immigrants. Therefore, the federal government has announced a significant reversal on Canada's immigration targets, reducing immigrant intake by roughly 20% over the next 3 years. This includes lowering the number of foreign students and temporary foreign workers, capped at no more than 5% of Canada's population by 2026. Few days ago, Immigration Minister Miller and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced the government is slashing the projected number of new permanent residents from 485,000 to 395,000 in 2025, with further cuts to 380,000 in 2026 and 365,000 in 2027. Temporary worker and student permits will be reduced significantly as well, by about 1 million permits in the same 2-year period. These transitional changes will alleviate pressures on housing, infrastructure, and social services so that over the long term, Canada can grow the economic and social prosperity through immigration. It is anticipated that more than 40% of overall permanent resident admissions in 2025 will be students or workers already in Canada. In my next video, I am going to discuss the Canadian education system.